Kittyhawk flying cars. Now, Blunty, I confess, I didn't know. I'm not sure I could have told you who Kittyhawk was before this story. So the fact that they've gone bust doesn't really hit me like it would if I was a Kittyhawk fan. Who is Kittyhawk and what's happened to them?
So you might remember, I think a year, maybe more ago, we did a couple stories on these, like basically flying multi-rotors, that like you want to put people into. And Kittyhawk was one of those companies who were basically trying to do air taxis. So, the idea is like, hey, helicopters are expensive to run. Maybe there's a middle ground where we can basically provide, taxis through the air to different points, different ways of, you could think about how you would handle it, right? But basically just like, 2 to 4 person flying cars to try to build autonomous stuff for the skies. And Kittyhawk has announced that they have given up. They are winding down what they're doing, and they basically say, it's just has not gone well. We're still working on the details of what's next, is kind of the way they say it. But it just did not work out. And this is, for people who don't know, this is Google co-founders Larry Page's startup that he backed to do this kind of stuff.
All righty. Well, looks like this, the dream of flying cars has been promised and not delivered since the 70s. And it looks like today will not be the day that it gets delivered, although this website certainly is impressive. What makes us different? Let's see what makes them different, Blunty. Our air taxi will be commanded by a ground operator overseeing multiple vehicles. Our first commercial model will have a single seat, no pulling with strangers. Oh, like an air taxi. Like it's going to Uber you. It's going to land in your yard and take you somewhere and you're not going to fly it. That's interesting.
Yeah, or it'll be like trains where they go to like a central location, right? So, yeah.
It's always fun after a company goes out of business to go back and look at their website. And our air taxi will be commanded by a ground operator. No, it won't, because you went out of business. It will have. No, it won't. No, am I wrong?
Well, so that didn't go well. They decided to stop, but in basically what is I would call a counter move, Boeing has shown plans for their team up with Whisk to do exactly what Kittyhawk says is not feasible and does not work. So they say by the end of the decade, by 2030, they will have a fleet of Whisk vehicles located in many different locations. And basically their plan is, if you scroll all the way down to like one of those fancy little pictures.
This
there
thing
you go.
here. Okay.
Yeah, open that guy a little bigger. We could take a look. So basically the idea is that we're going to have vertiports. So airports.
Vertiports.
You know what airports are, right? So we're going to have vertiports. And vertiports will be either positioned above highways, or they'll be positioned like on top of buildings, like basically in convenient places where they don't take up too much area. And the plan is such that you will be able to go to one of the big buildings in Manhattan, and you can just fly off of that building instead of having to find somewhere to like put a train or put a bus station or something. And then you'll fly to another vertiport that's located somewhere else conveniently. And so that's their sort of vision for this. And they've also, along with this, released a 64-page plan, which goes through their entire plan for what they're calling uncrewed urban air mobility. So their plan is to start crewed and start having you have piloted flights where it's basically like an Uber through the skies, and then transition into uncrewed, remotely managed, centrally located, uncrewed taxi service.
I'm sure this is a stupid question, and I'm stupid for asking it, but I've never been afraid of looking stupid. Why is no one doing this already with helicopters?
They're expensive as shit. And they think that this is not going to be near as expensive. That's from my understanding. That's the idea here. Is that helicopters are extremely expensive to operate, and they also don't have as good of a failsafe. Somebody can maybe help me with that, but I think like Jesus Bolt stops you from like running like a common like air taxi. Like Uber costs you $600 to fly, across the city in a helicopter for a reason. And I think a lot of that is insurance.
Wait, hold on, back up. Uber has helicopters in some cities.
Yeah, they do it for festivals and stuff. Yeah,
That's
you can like.
Cool.
Yeah, you like land at the airport and then you can get in an Uber helicopter to your festival, like sort of thing. They do that sort of thing. So,
That's kind of cool.
yeah.
You're saying that helicopters, for the same reason, basically, that we don't fly collective pitch helis, although some of us do, but RC enthusiasts fly multi-rotors because they're mechanically simpler, they're easier to maintain, and they have electrical failure modes, but maybe fewer mechanical failure modes. So the argument is that you take an air taxi with like 17 jillion motors, and then small props, and then it's cheaper to build and cheaper to fly.
And cheaper to maintain, which it's not Sam points out, helicopter regulations around maintenance are insane. I think it's just something about helicopters, and maybe people who know more about it can tell you, but they're just extremely expensive to run per hour and per day.
Okay.
And I think a lot of that comes around regulation. So hopefully this will come in with not that much around it, right?
Because they haven't had any regulations yet, because all of the regulations that were quote unquote written in blood, as they say, for all these other things, there's no blood on these yet. And so there will be fewer regulations, and then you can be the first one to jump in and save yourself 10 minutes getting home. Sounds good. Well, good luck, Boeing. It's always fun because people are like, we're going to do package delivery by drone. No, we're not. It doesn't work. And then just as they're making that announcement, someone else is like, wait, we've just started doing package delivery. And that's kind of what's going on here. Maybe Boeing can pull it off.
It feels like we're in like that early tech era sort of thing again, but for physical goods, where people are just going to burn a lot of money for the next, have been and will be burning money for the next however many years on things that might not ever work and make no sense. And then out of that, we're going to see like some of these things that actually make sense pop up and then
That's
actually
true.
be usable.
I mean, if you think back to the .com boom, there was a philosophy of give every potential Silicon Valley startup gobloads of money to spend on whatever they want. And so many of them don't exist anymore and never were viable. But some of them exist and turned out to be the Googles of the world and so forth. So maybe that's what we see here. I don't know.
Yeah. They do have competition. So there are other companies they mentioned in the article, Archer, Joby, and there's a couple others that are all working to do the same thing, get FAA certification and do similar flights and get testing and stuff done. So we'll see how it goes, and we'll be following along with it and watching it as it happens.
All right.